Welcome everyone to a new episode of the Theatre Thoughts podcast. I have with me a guest I've been wanting to talk to for a while. They have studied theatre and Mandarin at the Drew University, and upon graduation was awarded the Thomas H. Keane President's Award for Excellence in Theatre, which sounds very illustrious. While in the US, they performed off-Broadway and studied devising the Tectonic Theatre Project. When returning to Australia, they conceptualized and produced the sold-out immersive production of Much Ado About Nothing and was selected for ATYP's 2021 National Studio. She's the founder of Blinking Light Theatre, which seeks to further the fight against climate change, which within a theatrical space. It's Izabella Louk. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Yes, I'm so keen to talk to you. I saw 39 Steps not long ago after you guys did it in Sydney, and I was really interested because the way you run Blinking Light Theatre is obviously focusing on battling climate change through creating a sustainable and ethically sustainable theatre space.
Yeah,
and I was like, how does that actually work? So I was very interested to talk to you, and I'm very keen to get all your thoughts on that today.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm so excited to chat.
Yeah, well, first, what the first thing we'll do is we'll learn about you first. For those who don't know, I know I just did a little bio, but there was a lot I left out of that just for my own wrapping around my mouth. But yeah, if you could talk about yourself for a sec and give us a bit of an insight into your career in theatre.
Absolutely. Well, like you said, I studied at Drew, which is in New Jersey in the US, and I lived over there for 4 years. I had the most amazing experience. And actually, as part of my theatre degree, we had to take general education classes. So like a math class and a science class. And I took one rogue environmental science class, which sort of opened my eyes to, obviously, we all know climate change is happening, but that is what opened my eyes to climate change. And while I was over there, I also trained with the Shakespeare Theatre of New Jersey and, like you said, Tectonic, who are just an insane company and they're doing such cool stuff. And I came back because of COVID, as I think a lot of Australians did. Had no idea what I was doing with myself. And then sort of realized that there were a lot of us in the same boat and that there were so many people who were robbed of their showcase or their last sort of year of drama school or just were fresh in the industry and there was nothing for us. And so that's why I decided to put on Much Ado About Nothing back in 2022. And from there, I realized that sustainable theatre is something that we absolutely need to be doing. So alongside acting and my career as an actor, I've started my company Blinking Light because I just really want to help push this movement. It's so important to future-proof the arts in Australia and also just it opens up a world of creative opportunities thinking about sustainability. And as an actor, I've toured with a lot of children's theatre. I performed with the Australian Ballet last year, which was so cool being on the Opera House stage. Cool. I did The Wolves at the end of last year. Had an absolute blast with that. Yeah, and I'm just finished up 39 Steps.
That's so cool. So you're like me, you got a lot of fingers in a lot of pies, which is really cool.
Yeah, acting, writing, producing, I love it all.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think what I liked about Blinking Light's idea about sustainable theatre is you don't think about it when you're watching it. And then afterwards, I saw you do a post about where all the stuff came from and where it went. And I was like, oh, okay, so that's where it all ties in. But we'll get to that. I'll put a pin in that. We'll get to that in a bit because that's kind of like the main thing I want to talk about. But I'd love to ask you our 1 minute theatre thoughts questions first. Okay, well, let's turn our attention then to Blinking Light Theatre. So I'll give a little description, but I'd love for you obviously to fill in the gaps. So Blinking Light Theatre is dedicated to creating bold works of theatre that build community, spread joy and further the fight against climate change. Now, I got this off your website, so this is like straight off it. Yeah. But you aim to make sure that 90% of materials used in the productions have had previous lives somewhere. All the other materials are sourced sustainably. The damaging or toxic materials are avoided. mileage associated with production is consciously reduced, and 90% of materials are reused or recycled post show. So that is like really detailed and really, really specific. So I guess the question I want to ask is, how did you come to those decisions?
So there's not a lot of guidelines around sustainable theatre creation, but there's this fantastic organization called the Theatre Green Book, and I think it's based in the UK, and they've got these 60-page handbooks for how to design sustainably, how to run a front of house sustainably, how to run tech sustainably. And they've got guidelines for whether you're a small theatre, a medium scale theatre, or sort of a big Broadway production. And those guidelines, some of them worked within sort of the scope of a Sydney indie theatre scene, and some of them didn't. And then there was things that I thought, we followed these guidelines for Much Ado About Nothing back in 2022. And having done that, I thought, there's things that we can probably build on and like push ourselves further on. And there's things that just are really tricky for us. I mean, Sydney's such a sprawling city that it is really hard to get to some places without a car. So the mileage thing is trickier than it might be in a city like New York, where you can just get the subway everywhere. So I sort of adapted those guidelines for use in our show, added some, and then also as we've been going along, I've been able to see, well, we're meeting that. We're far excelling beyond that. And I can just push us and see where we land. Or what if I combine that guideline and that guideline? What happens then? And I think I've been so lucky in that I've worked with teams that are really, really receptive to that. And so a big part of my process as a producer is starting any production process with sustainability training, because it's all good and well to say, let's be sustainable, but we're also all at different places on our climate journey. So starting with the training to make sure we're all on the same page. And it's less training and more an open forum as well. And that's been really great in that designers have said, well, I could do this and we haven't even thought about this. And we can reduce our electricity consumption by programming in different types of lights and having lights that do more rather than more lights. Or just working with front of houses and them saying, well, I actually don't need a printed list of tickets. So there's a lot of feedback involved in developing those guidelines.
Yeah, and I don't think, this is where I feel like some people would look when you say you're doing like sustainable theatre, and some people would go, oh, well, it must be like shabby or like cheap or something like that. But seeing 39 Steps, it wasn't in any way, shape, or form. You know, it was a proper production. So that's why I sat there and I went, where's the sustainability impact come through? And then when I saw your post show like rundown, and you were like, oh, we got this from here, we got this from here, we recycled this was borrowed, so we turned it back. Like, I was just like, oh, okay, so they've built it around and found ways to make it sustainable, but it still is a professionally run production. It's not like the vision or what you see in front of you isn't like you can.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You know what I mean? I don't mean to be like,
No,
oh,
there's
like, yeah.
absolutely this sort of idea that I think is going around that sustainability does mean compromising on sort of aesthetics or artistic integrity. And it really doesn't have to be like that. I think if you come in with sustainability and just a sustainable mindset from the get-go, you're designing with it in mind. So rather than thinking, oh, I need 25 styrofoam Christmas trees, you think, well, I can't do that and I'm being sustainable. So you just don't design it to begin with. Or if you don't schedule a rehearsal, if all your actors live in Glebe, say, you don't schedule a rehearsal in the back of Burke or something. So there's less of a compromise and more just it has to be a thought process. And I think that is one hurdle to get over in that sustainability journey and that sustainability process, that it is a learning curve and it does take additional consideration, but you don't have to compromise.
Yeah, exactly. That's so great. And I feel like there's not a lot of companies who are doing that as well. So you're kind of, dare I say, leading the way in that in the Sydney theatre scene, which is props to you.
Thank you. It's been really exciting because even just chatting to people after the show, they've said, oh, I can do that for my next show. I'm going to try that out. And it's baby steps, because the more we all do it, we don't have to be perfect. We just all have to try.
Yeah, and that's it. And you've got another show coming up. You told us before we started you
Yes.
got a new show coming up. So let's chat about that. You said it was a new work by David Halgren, who was in the 39 Steps.
Yes. Yeah, it's a new work. It's sort of based around the idea that we really are losing a lot of theatre and a lot of art spaces. So, in the world of the play, the government has outlawed theatre. And it's a race against time and a race against the clock and a race against attitudes around theatre and around art to get a show on stage. The show within a show being an adaptation of Hamlet, actually. Speak of
Ah,
the devil. So it's, I think, quite an insightful reflection on what I think we're going through in Sydney right now. We're really losing so many beautiful spaces for expression and for arts that we are turning to sort of other spaces and found spaces. So I think that's quite relevant. And again, it'll be a sustainable production. And yeah, I'm really excited. It'll be on in October.
very good. Very exciting. I love, obviously, new pieces of work as well. Always a good thing in Sydney. I feel like we do that very well in Sydney. We obviously have heaps of new work that comes through. And then mixing it with all these sustainable impacts is, all the sustainable design is
Yeah.
a great way to do it. So well done. Well, I'd love to ask you a question, sorry, that I ask, actually, I'm going to say that all over again. That was really muddled. I'd love to ask you a question that I ask everyone who comes on to the podcast. I'd love to know how you think, and this kind of leads into what we're talking about as well, how you think the theatre industry's changed over the years and how those changes have impacted the work that you do.
I think it's changed. I mean, from the sustainability point of view, it's changed in that we're thinking about it at all. And there's so many great organizations popping up, like Sustainable Theatres Australia is one that's Sydney and Melbourne based. There's Julie's Bicycle in the UK, who've been around forever. And there's sustainable festivals popping up. So I think we're seeing an eye towards that, which is so exciting. And not just pieces about climate change, which are obviously so important in the conversation, and storytelling is obviously at the heart of theatre, but we're seeing people just be conscious of how they're making things, which is huge and so exciting. But I think we're also seeing the industry like demystified, for want of a better word. I think it's slowly opening, and very slowly, obviously, but opening up, and people are willing to share a little bit more, and there's less gatekeeping for new artists, or artists who traditionally have less access to this industry because it has been gatekept from them. So I think we're seeing it become demystified, and people, or maybe from the top down, there are people are actively making the effort to just explain how it all works, which is just really exciting.
Yeah, that's great. What a great answer. I think no one's you're offering a new perspective, and not a lot of my guests have said, which is great. Gatekeeping. No one's talked about that so far with any of my guests. So I'd love to just build on that for a second. Why do you think that's an important thing to avoid?
Well, I mean, theatre is about community. I mean, all art is about community, but specifically here, theatre is about community. And I think it should always be for the community. And you also can't do it without a community. You can't do theatre unless you've got an audience sitting out there ready to support you. So I think if we're gatekeeping, it's not for the community, and we're not welcoming audiences in, we're not welcoming other artists in. So I think if we want theatre to be what it not traditionally should be, but at the end of the day, it's about stories, and it's about sharing a story with the person next to you and having that experience together. So if we're gatekeeping, we're not aiming towards that, and we're not striding towards that.
Excellent. Couldn't have said it better myself. Well done. So good. Well, Isabella, thank you so much for jumping on and having a chat about Blinking Lights and the productions coming up, which is super exciting.
Yeah, thank
Um,
you so much for having me.
oh, you're more than welcome. I'd love to know though, for our audiences and our listeners, where can they learn more about you guys and about the work that you do?
We're on Instagram, blinkinglight.theatre, and we also have a very snazzy website, which is blinkinglighttheatre.com. And we've got all our
Excellent.
shows, and we've also got information on, creating sustainably. And later in the year, hopefully, we'll also have some sustainability workshops, which are for artists or just people who are interested in building on their sustainability journey or just jumping in with from the get-go.
Excellent, love that. Well, please make sure you keep us up to date, and I'll shout out from the rooftops when that comes through. So thank you so much once again. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.